Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're looking at something that is, it's going to completely flip how you see the world.
Yeah, it really is. It challenges literally everything you probably assume about how extreme poverty actually works.
Right. I mean, if I ask you why a poor family suddenly plunges into this total financial abyss, one they can never escape, what would you say? You probably think, oh, they don't save money. Or maybe they're just lazy.
Which is such a common assumption. We always default to these very standard, logical economic reasons. Unemployment, bad crops, stuff like that.
Exactly. But you are entirely wrong. And I say that because the real reason is it's actually hidden in the social dignity they are just desperately trying to defend.
Right. We are unpacking this massive multi-year tracking study today. It's from the Agincourt Demographic Surveillance Site in South Africa.
Yeah, conducted by two incredibly top-tier scholars, Ann Case from Princeton and Alicia Menendez from the University of Chicago.
And what their data reveals is just, it exposes the absolutely devastating cost to face, like maintaining your social standing.
Okay, let's just unpack this right away. Because when I read this, I was genuinely in shock. People were quite literally going bankrupt to say goodbye.
What's fascinating here is that poverty isn't always this slow burn. Sometimes it's a sudden socially mandated financial cliff.
Right. So I want you to picture something. Imagine you're walking through one of these rural villages. You see a really dilapidated mud hut, dirt floors, bare survival.
Okay, yeah. A very clear picture of extreme poverty.
Oh, imagine, right next to that mud hut, there is a shockingly luxurious solid wood coffin gleaming in the sun. Which one of those do you think costs more?
I mean, logically, you'd think the shelter for the living. But the answer is the box for the dead.
Yes, the box for the dead costs more. Most people assume that in places like South Africa, extreme poverty is driven by, a lack of jobs.
But the raw data from this tracking study it slaps that theory right in the face. The biggest financial black hole isn't losing a job.
No. The most terrifying threat to the living isn't even starvation. It is the mandatory ritual for the dead. The ceremony that's meant to honor life is actually pushing survivors right over the edge.
Wait, so you're telling me that hosting a funeral is more dangerous financially than, say, a major medical emergency?
Exactly. You absolutely cannot imagine what an ordinary funeral costs here. It is, quite frankly, economic suicide.
Okay, let's get into the actual numbers then.
Okay.
Because the data here is just wild.
Yeah, it really is. So when an adult dies in this region, the average funeral costs about 3,400 Rand.
Now, just hearing 3,400 Rand might not mean much to you. But we have to look at what that means for these specific families.
Right. That amount is a massive 40% of the family's entire annual expenditure. 40%.
Wow. Think about that for a second. They are trading nearly half a year's food, half a year's actual survival money for just one single day of glory.
That's like an average American family. Let's say they spend $75,000 a year to live. It's like them spending $30,000 in a single weekend just because someone died.
And pulling it straight out of their grocery budget. Because it's not like they have a savings account to draw from.
Exactly. They don't have a buffer. But the sheer panic of, this is what gets me, funerals in this culture are more elaborate than weddings.
Oh, absolutely. They're more demanding than graduations. It is the ultimate rite of passage. But the financial bloodletting is immense.
They pay the ultimate price for face. But where exactly does this literal mountain of cash go? Is it just the fancy coffin?
You'd think so, right? Because of the visual. But the coffin isn't even the most shocking part of the bill.
Right. The coffin is expensive. It averages around 2,221 Rand. But the real killer, it's the dinner plate.
Wait, the dinner plate, like the food for the guests?
Yes. The biggest trap is the flowing banquet.
Yeah.
85% of families buy massive amounts of meat. That costs another 1,100 Rand, plus 700 Rand on general groceries.
Oh my God, why meat? It's literally the most expensive thing you could possibly buy in that environment.
I know. Imagine you are crying over a lost loved one, and suddenly 50 people show up expecting a massive barbecue, and they stay for days.
This is not a quiet goodbye at all. This sounds like a hostage situation disguised as a social public relations event.
That is exactly what it is. The grieving family must literally build a mountain of cash and meat to feed everyone. But why? Why is meat mandatory?
Well, it's a performance, You must prove your respect for the dead through visible, expensive consumption.
Right. If you just served, like, vegetables or grain, the community would judge you forever. You lose all your social standing.
So tradition has always dictated this. But wait, if this tradition is so old, Why has it suddenly become this lethal poison today? How did they survive it before?
That is the crucial question. And the cruelest joke of history is that social customs cannot outrun a disaster.
Ah, you're talking about the mortality curve, right? The demographic shift.
Exactly. In the past, people basically only died when they were either very young babies or very old.
Right, the traditional U-shaped curve. Babies had cheap funerals, and old people had state pensions and insurance to cover the costs.
The system worked. It was expensive, but it functioned. But then AIDS broke the system entirely.
The mortality curve just violently mutated. Suddenly, this enormous wave of 20 to 34-year-old adults started dropping dead.
Prime age workers, the mothers, the fathers, the people actually bringing in the money.
So traditions that were formed in an era of quote-unquote safe deaths are now being blindly applied to a devastating modern plague.
It's horrific. So not only do you lose your main breadwinner, the person actually funding your survival, but you instantly get hit with a luxury tax to bury them.
Exactly. The demographic reality changed overnight, but the social rule book didn't budge an inch.
Losing the main labor force is bad enough, but the researchers found that the real destruction hasn't even started yet.
Because your status in life doesn't actually dictate the cost of your funeral. Your age does.
Right. Specifically, the terrifying threshold of age 5.
Wait, age 5? What happens at age 5?
Okay, so the researchers plotted this on a scatter graph. A funeral for a toddler, someone 0 to 5 years old, costs peanuts. Just 62 Rand.
Okay, so a private, quiet tragedy. That makes sense.
But the absolute second a child turns 6, their death price skyrockets to 3,415 Rand.
Oh, wow. So 5 years old is literally a financial death warrant for the surviving family.
Yes. The data shows an absolutely flat, high line of spending, whether the deceased is 6 or 60, even if you remove the massive outliers.
Wait, let me wrap my head around this. An 8-year-old gets the exact same luxury funeral as a 40-year-old working adult.
Exactly. A child who contributes 0 income demands the exact same financial sacrifice. That is economically insane.
It's a rigid, unyielding social rule book. Once you cross age 5, society deems you a person who demands a full adult send-off.
The community just demands it. The meat must be served. So to give the dead this decent exit, what are the living forced to sacrifice?
The guests burp, they wipe their mouths, and they leave. Then the true horror begins.
Right, because the data shows what happens next. For families who buried an adult in the last 5 years, their daily per capita consumption didn't just dip.
It plummeted by a staggering 20%.
A 20% drop in daily survival goods. They are slashing their own necessities just to pay for a few days of vanity.
They're literally starving themselves to keep up appearances. Less food in the pot, less fuel for warmth, less safety.
They're trading actual calories for a fancy box. And the data proves this hardship is a direct, measurable consequence of the funeral outlay.
The regression models isolate it perfectly. It's the literal cash drain from the ritual causing the starvation.
But starving today isn't even the deepest wound. They are actively burying tomorrow.
Yeah, they think they are burying the dead. In reality, they're burying their own children's future.
Poverty is a contagious disease, and it's passed down generations. The researchers looked at school enrollment rates.
And the numbers are brutal. Every single 1,000 Rand dumped into a funeral drops the school enrollment rate of the family's kids by 3 percentage points.
Think about that. The coffin gets heavier, and the school books just drop to the floor. An adult death drops enrollment by 4% overall.
And if a 6 to 17-year-old dies, it drops the enrollment of the surviving kids by 5%.
It's a horrifying scale. Put a piece of meat for a guest on one side and literally pull a child out of a classroom on the other.
And pulling a kid from school in this environment isn't just a temporary setback. It permanently locks them into the poverty cycle.
It guarantees they'll be in the exact same mud hut 20 years from now. So their wallets are empty, the kids are out of school.
Surely honoring the dead at this high level brings them psychological peace, right? I mean, they fulfilled their duty.
You'd think so, but wrong. You think spending big money buys closure? The truth is the exact opposite.
The more money they spend, the worse they feel. Spending doesn't buy comfort. It buys crushing anxiety.
The researchers tracked mental ruins. Every death naturally spikes the adult depression index by 0.25 points.
Which is expected. You're grieving. But as the funeral bill climbs, what happens?
The depression and anxiety rocket upward with it, hitting an absolute peak of misery at exactly 7,200 Rand.
Wait, why would spending more make you more depressed? Shouldn't a proper funeral make you feel proud?
You would assume that. But they are tracking symptoms like feeling miserable, crying, poor appetite, restless sleep.
Ah, it's the crushing weight of the dead, the sheer regret of the financial ruin they just orchestrated.
The mental ruins match the financial ones perfectly. You look around, the guests are gone, and you just owe a loan shark thousands of rand.
But wait a minute, we're talking about a tight-knit village here, right? Don't the neighbors help out? We always hear about rural mutual aid.
We love to romanticize that warm, mutual aid of poor communities, but the data entirely shatters that illusion.
So the community doesn't help at all.
Well, yes, 72% of the time the community chips in, but their actual financial contribution is an absolute joke.
Really? How much are we talking about?
It's a drop in the ocean. The community gives an average of 344 rand, but the broken family is forced to bleed out 2,478 rand.
Oh my God. The entire crushing weight stays squarely on the family's neck.
Exactly. When you look at the pie chart of who pays, the family and extended family bear the absolute brunt.
So the community demands you throw a massive party for them, but they barely toss a few coins in the bucket to help pay for it.
Yes, the social pressure is immense and mandatory, but the financial support is a complete illusion.
They enforce the tax, they eat the meat, and they leave you with the bill. That is wild.
Which leads to a really obvious question. If they know death is coming, and with the AIDS crisis, it was everywhere, why on earth don't they buy insurance?
Right. Death is inevitable. So why are they walking into this financial trap completely naked?
It's an anti-common sense moment. 70% of the elderly have funeral insurance.
Okay, so the product exists, and it's accessible.
But only 27% of young working adults have it.
It makes no sense. The young are the ones dropping dead from the crisis. They're the ones leaving kids behind.
Exactly. The old man with the cane has a financial shield. The young laborer has a massive storm cloud over his head.
So why do the elderly have it?
Because the funeral parlor salesmen literally stand outside the pension pay points. When elderly get their government cash, they just hand 20 rand to the guy right there.
Oh, so it's frictionless. It's effortless.
But are the young people just too poor to afford the premium? I mean, is 20 rand a month too much for them?
No. The researchers proved it's not a money issue. It's something much darker.
The reason they don't buy insurance will honestly make you sigh in frustration at human nature.
It's the myopia trap. It's not a lack of cash. It's a lethal flaw in human psychology.
Right. Young people are violently allergic to planning for their own death. Unless a salesman forces the insurance into their hand on payday, they refuse to buy it.
It's just exactly like the analogy with a farmer. A farmer refuses to buy fertilizer before the season starts, even though he knows he needs it.
Because it requires distant planning. They ignore the abstract, distant doom to just focus on surviving today.
And to buy funeral insurance at 30, you have to look your own mortality in the eye. That's terrifying.
So because it's mentally uncomfortable to think about dying early, they just avoid it entirely.
Which basically guarantees their family's total destruction when it happens. Behavioral economics proves people need default systems to make good choices.
Sudden death shatters the totally unprepared young family with sniper-like precision.
Now, some skeptics listening to this might say, well, these families were probably already at the absolute bottom. They were already making bad choices.
Oh, the old blame the victim routine. Was this family just doomed from the start?
The answer is no. The data proves they were perfectly, completely average.
The researchers actually isolated the variables. Before the sudden death, these ruined families had the exact same assets as everyone else.
They had the exact same education levels, the exact same types of houses as the families who survived.
That is horrifying. It means this is a terrifying, indiscriminate freefall.
You don't have to be poor to be destroyed. Just one high-priced funeral can turn a stable, normal family instantly destitute.
It means nobody is safe. You're literally just one funeral away from zero.
The power of the data here is that it completely eliminates the victim-blaming mentality. This is a systemic trap triggered by an event out of their control.
And this isn't just a story about a village in Africa. This is actually a blueprint for how the world operates.
We have to step back and look at the invisible handcuffs locking humanity together.
When a social tradition mutates into a mandatory consumption standard, it stops being culture.
Right. It becomes a sickle. It's actively harvesting the poor.
People willingly sacrifice their children's future simply to satisfy the judgmental gaze of their neighbors.
It happens with funerals in Africa, but it happens everywhere else too. Think about massive wedding dowries in South Asia.
Or insane graduation banquets. Hyperconsumption everywhere. It's a massive societal shakedown.
The Agincourt data connects to this universal human flaw. We will literally bankrupt ourselves so the tribe doesn't reject us.
So at the end of the day, what does all this sacrifice actually achieve? We write rest in peace on the tombstone.
But the reality is entirely different. The dead do not rest.
No, the legacy they leave behind is a prison of debt. It locks their loved ones into permanent poverty.
Unless we smash these deformed social rules, the bottom class can never accumulate capital.
Picture the visual of this. You have a fresh grave, and it is entirely buried under invoices and high-interest loan documents.
It looks like a quaint cultural quirk to outsiders, but it is actually a brutal system of economic exploitation against the weakest members of society.
You want to honor them, but the way society forces you to do it actually destroys everything the deceased worked for.
Which is why churches and activists are starting to demand affordable funerals. Systemic change requires a cultural rebellion.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we really have to look in the mirror. We sit here analyzing a village in South Africa, feeling like we know better.
Yeah, we think we're immune to this logic. Do we really know better?
We understand the math of how a funeral destroys a future over there, but modern society does the exact same thing, just with different symbols.
In South Africa, they borrow from loan sharks for a coffin. In our cities, we max out credit cards for designer labels.
We take out huge loans for massive weddings. We lease luxury cars we absolutely do not need, all to buy social approval.
Are we just repeating history in a nicer suit? It's the exact same psychological trap.
We're swiping a piece of plastic to impress people we don't even really like and crippling our own financial futures.
Exactly. The currency changes, but the sickle of social expectation harvests us all the same.
So I want to end with a direct challenge for you. Look around your own life. Look at your bank statements.
Ask yourself the hard questions.
What is the high-priced funeral you are currently paying for? What social tradition are you blindly funding today that is secretly bankrupting your tomorrow?
It's time to question the why behind the things society tells you that you absolutely must do.
Because the cost of fitting in might just be everything you have. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.